Standing by, the Terry and Ted podcast is sponsored by the UPS Store Canada. More than 380 convenient neighborhood locations throughout Canada. The UPSstore.ca.
Bonjour et bienvenue, Ted. Puis bonne Saint-Jean.
Bonne fête à toi aussi, mais il fait chaud en esti.
Oh, le chaleur. By the way, we're recording on the actual Fête Saint-Jean on the Tuesday. For this, the last episode of the season, Wednesday, June 25th, 2025. I'm Terry DeMonte, that's Ted Bird. Hope you had a nice Fête Saint-Jean whenever you're listening to this, and hope you were able to escape the heat a little bit, because as we're recording this, it's about 9 jillion degrees.
It's crazy.
In town, yeah.
Last night, as in Monday night, because we're recording on Tuesday, I live in a 2-bedroom apartment. I've got 2 portable air conditioners, those rolling sort of portable air conditioners with the hose that you run to the window. I had them both running at full blast, and it was still 91 Fahrenheit in my apartment, according to the little temperature gauge on a stationary bike that I have.
That's comfortable for sleeping.
Yeah, that's great.
It's like being in a tent in Guam, I would imagine. Welcome
Except without the snakes and spiders.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast. It is the last episode of this season. When I moved back to Quebec from British Columbia last July, Ted and I decided to do the podcast weekly, and we've also decided to take a wee bit of a break in the summertime. So as we start this podcast to wrap up this season, as we call it, I'd like to start by saying thank you to the UPS Store, to Sugar Sammy, to the folks at Merson Automotive, to the people at Robert Richer Jewelers, and to the good folks at Accutech. Those are our sponsors that stuck with us throughout the year, and we couldn't do this without them. We are deeply, deeply grateful.
The UPS Store Canada is our title sponsor.
It is.
And we generally start each podcast talking about them. Did you see the pictures of their president and CEO?
I did.
And our great and good friend, David Drucker?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Is the kind of boss that David Drucker is. He's a president and CEO of a national corporation, but he is out there hither and yon, traveling all across the country, visiting his individual franchisees. He is a small businessman at heart who runs a big business company, but because of his origins and his kind of work ethic, that small business mentality seeps right down to street level with the UPS Store.
And we've said this before, the UPS Store is, in a way, a small business. The one that's in your community is run by somebody that lives in your community and understands your community and can really solve your problems if you run a small local business out of your house, or if you're just looking for a little help during the move, which here in Quebec is coming up as we record this. Find the location nearest you. They're everywhere. There's over 400 of them at the UPSstore.ca.
David is also active in many charitable endeavors, including the Starlight Foundation. And I got a note this week from the head of the Starlight Foundation, Brian Bringolf, regarding your story about Tony Bennett at the Formula One Gala, the night that Tony Bennett was singing for the Formula One Glitterati, and no one was paying attention to him, even though he's Tony fucking Bennett.
Yeah.
And Brian was there that night and had a nice addendum to that story. And I don't know if I sent you the note, and I don't know if it jogged your memory, but Brian said at one point, Tony Bennett stopped singing and said, if you were treating Frank Sinatra like this, he would pour gasoline in the place, set it on fire, and leave.
I didn't hear that, or I don't remember it. And I think what's happened is I conflated that memory with an F1 gala. I think Brian was saying that was a gala for the Starlight Foundation that Sylvia and I were at.
Okay.
So that, it was many, many years ago.
Yeah, it was about 25 years ago.
Yeah, it's a lot of galas ago. So, but that is a very, very funny story. If you missed the episode last week, we were talking about how Tony Bennett was performing and nobody was paying attention. And everybody was just talking. And Tony Bennett was like aggravated.
Well, I don't blame him.
Understandably so, yeah.
It's disrespectful.
Yeah.
It's
And the
disrespectful.
Sinatra thing, obviously he said it because Brian has a better recall
Yeah.
than I do, but that's really, really funny.
That reminded me of something Don Rickles once said about Frank Sinatra when he was older. He said, Sinatra's got Sicilian Alzheimer's. He only remembers the grudges.
God bless you, Rickles, wherever you are. I just wanted to tell this story quickly. Just about an hour ago, before we sat down here in the studio in Chabanel, I was in the bank machine.
You were in the bank machine.
Well, I wasn't in the bank machine. I went in to get money from the bank machine on Chabanel. And as I went in the door, a woman that I didn't see suddenly appeared out of nowhere. A tiny elfin-like woman was standing behind me. And there were two machines. And I went to one machine, and she continued just to stand behind me. And I thought, that's odd. So I kept looking over my left shoulder to make sure she wasn't going to, stick me in the ass with a knife or whatever.
Right.
And she just stood there while I made my transaction. And then when I completed my transaction, she said to me in very, very broken French, "Can you help me?" And she extended what looked like a card, like a debit card. And I said, well, you just, mets ton carte dans la
machine,
slot,
yeah.
And she said, in French, she said to me, "Yes, but my eyes are very bad." And I thought, okay, I don't want to discount this. I don't want to walk away from this woman who might need help.
But she might be pulling a fast one, too.
I think she was.
Yeah.
Because she put the card in and she pointed to the pin pad and she said, "Can you help me?" And I said, "No, you have to put your code in. Connais-tu votre code?" And she said, "Oui, mais j'ai pas de lunettes." And she started to tell me the code. And I pushed 3 and the card kicked out. And I said, "Désolé, madame," and I left. So I'm not sure what kind of scam or thing was being set up, but I think I was being set up.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Eh?
Maybe she was just waiting for you to go, here's $50.
She would, and probably is still standing there. Anyway, I thought I would mention it because there's all kinds of scams that go on, and they're always trying to, change the game. And I wonder if anybody else has run across that. Anyway,
Sounds
I thought
like
I
a
would
hustle
mention
to me.
It felt like a hustle. That's why I said désolé and I left.
Here's the flip side of that. I was at the IGA last night, and the girl who was working the cash was probably 18 or 19 years old, and I paid her with cash, and she was at a loss.
Yeah, did you confuse her?
Yeah. It was $22. It was $22.34, and I gave her $25, and she looked at the $25, and she looked back at me, and she goes, "What do I owe you?" And I said, $265. She said,
It's
"Okay."
true. When you hand cash over, a lot of people have that, "Oh no."
Yeah,
look on their face.
she's just used to people using their card and punching it in, and it gets approved, and she gives you your receipt. She doesn't have to do math. So she was at a complete loss.
Yeah. She
could not subtract $22.34 from $25.
Wow.
I had to do it for her. I could have gone, "You owe me $10.
Yeah. In the news, the Peel Pub is gone. Did you see that this week, Ted?
Yeah, it doesn't really affect me as
No,
someone
me
with
neither.
28 years of sobriety, and I don't even remember the last time I was in the Peel Pub. It would be at least 30 years ago,
Yeah.
probably closer to 35 or 40.
Yeah, I just remember the Peel Pub being the floor being covered in beer usually.
Yeah.
And
Spilled beer?
Yeah, spilled beer and jugs of beer that were mostly water, I think. And the last time I was in the Peel Pub was they're just hats for Christ's sake debacle. Do you remember that story?
No.
We went, Blair Bartram loves this story because Blair at the time was running a radio station, and the Rolling Stones were in town. And we had some event at the Peel Pub, and we went to the Peel Pub and we had hats, Budweiser hats. And the kind of stretchy hat that a painter pulls on. It's made,
Right. Yeah,
made
yeah.
of paper.
Yes.
Just for
Yeah.
the one painting
Yeah,
session.
I know exactly what you
Well,
mean.
they were those hats, and it said Budweiser, Rolling Stones, or something on it. And I went on stage and did everybody having a good time, and everybody was drunk and hammered. And Blair brought the hats on stage for a giveaway, and people charged the stage. Like, they charged the stage.
Like you were giving away $100 bills.
And I was like, what are you doing? They're just fucking hats. Get back. Anyway, that was the last time I was in the Peel Pub. Peel Pub was opened in 1962, bit of a Montreal institution. And I saw somebody ponder, or what's the word I'm looking for? They posited maybe that...
Postulated
that the demographics in the city are changing. That a lot of international students come to town now, and those international students do not partake in alcohol.
I was going to say, if I had to guess, because I was not overly familiar with the Peel Pub, but it was a McGill student hangout. As much or more than anything. No,
Yeah, I think a lot of people in their 30s and 40s were, moaning about the loss of the pub because of the memories it had from when they were in McGill and Concordia.
Right. So
anyway,
has it become something else, or is it just vacant for now?
They've gone bankrupt. And the sign's up in the...
By the way?
Yeah, the Faility,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
The Faility?
Yeah, we've gone Faility. So I'm very sorry you can't come in. We should talk, speaking about the ending of things, we should talk about Don Cherry. You want to talk about that here?
Sure.
Yeah. Don Cherry, was it yesterday?
It was June 22nd.
Yeah, June 22nd.
So that would have been, Sunday.
Sunday. His son, Tim Cherry, posted a clip on YouTube that I saw, and it was Don Cherry's goodbye. And the audio of Don Cherry's goodbye was on his podcast. He has a podcast.
Called The Grapevine.
And Tim Cherry, his son, I guess, produces it and sort of co-hosts with him. And the clip was Don basically saying,
Yeah, we have the clip right
Oh,
here.
okay. We have.
So
you brought a clip.
I brought a clip.
Excellent. Okay.
So it sounds like, and the way it was presented online, it seemed like the podcast, this was the last episode
coming to an
of
end.
the
Yeah.
podcast. Give this a listen.
Well, Tim, this is our last show.
Yep. How many podcasts have we done?
I don't know.
This is our 313th.
313th.
Yeah, we've been listened to all around the world. It's just amazing how many different countries, people download and listen to it. We've had 6.5 million downloads, which is pretty good. So
how many?
6.5 million downloads.
That's an awful lot. Thanks everybody for listening, and toodaloo.
So that made it sound like that was the end of the podcast.
Not only that, the crawler at the bottom says our final podcast. Like we're looking at it on YouTube.
And to listen to Don Cherry, you think, okay, he's out of gas.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 91 years old.
Yeah, and
I don't know what the state of his physical health is, but
No.
he sounds like he's not the old, I tell you one thing right now.
No. I said to you in a text that I thought, as does happen to people in their 90s, the timbre in his voice and his cadence was gone.
Yeah.
So it isn't the Don Cherry that we've come to know. It sounds like a Don Cherry who's been weakened by, he's 91 years old. It's completely understandable.
And he sounds 91.
Yeah.
But this morning, I got a note from a friend of mine who's a longtime Toronto journalist and is very plugged into the Toronto journalism community. He spoke to Joe Warmington from the Toronto Sun, who's the only journalist that Don Cherry speaks to. And Don Cherry told Joe Warmington, no, it was just the last one of the season. This is much ado about nothing.
Wow.
I'm not done.
Wow. Well, the posture.
The way it was positioned.
Yeah.
So that's on Tim Cherry.
I think so.
And he's got to make that. He's got to make that correction online.
Yeah, he's going to have to make that clear. I think
because everybody is assuming that Don Cherry's more than 45-year run.
Yeah.
In Canadian media.
Yeah.
Is now over.
You tweeted yesterday. This was astonishing to me because Ted and I, it's not something that we complain about because there's nothing you can do about it. But Ted and I had a pretty strong following on Twitter. And whenever we posted something on Twitter, we usually got a nice reaction. That's all gone. Anything we post on Twitter gets 200, 300.
Yeah, after Elon Musk bought Twitter, everything changed. All the algorithms changed.
Yeah.
And we don't pay to be verified users, so we get very, very little traction on Twitter.
So, if I post something and 700 people look at it, I think, well, that's better than nothing.
Small victory,
but it's a small audience, but, so, and as is the case with social media, you do look at what kind of reach your stuff that you put out is getting.
Well, especially if you're trying to market something like we're trying to market a podcast.
Right. So do you have your tweet?
Yeah, I tweeted this yesterday afternoon. Don Cherry quietly signs off after being right about everything. No public figure in Canadian history got railroaded worse than grapes, and Ron MacLean was driving the train to his everlasting shame. And I attached that to an article from a publication called The Western Standard. Frail-sounding Don Cherry bids farewell from podcast. And I got, as of Tuesday at lunchtime, it's up to 360,000 views.
Which for us is... That may as well be like 9 gajillion. Like that's
we never get that
that's
kind
astonishing.
of traction.
And how many people reposted it? Like there was over 900 yesterday.
1.8 thousand retweets.
So you really touched a nerve,
evidently,
with that commentary and that tweet.
Well, the sentiment in particular that he was right about everything, and Ron MacLean threw him under the bus of the nearly 500 responses to that tweet. 99% or more agree with me.
Yeah.
You have to go scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll until you find someone who goes, good riddance.
Yeah.
He was a bigot.
Yeah.
Everything else is Don Cherry, one of the greatest Canadians who ever lived. Ron MacLean is a traitor who threw him under the bus. Ron MacLean's day will come. Don Cherry needs to go into the Hockey Hall of Fame. The affection for Don Cherry in this country is much greater than we probably know. It's just that after he was thrown out the door for his comments about you people coming here and having our milk and honey and not even spending $2 on a poppy, he was fired for that and called a bigot and a racist and all the rest. A lot of people agree with him.
Yeah.
A lot of people agree with him, but they're afraid to say so because they're afraid of being labeled racist, bigoted.
I don't think it was just that people agreed with that one thing, and I agree with you, most people do. But I also think the kind of grace and decency that Cherry left in his wake with members of the armed forces, police officers, people who had been hurt in accidents, people that were in the hospital, hockey players that were down on their luck. This was a guy who did a lot of good and left a lot of good and decency in his wake. And I think Canadians appreciated that.
And without exception, anyone I've ever spoken to or anything I've ever read from someone who had a personal interaction with Don Cherry, without exception, they talked about how nice and decent he was and engaging.
Yeah.
One guy, I read a thing this morning about a guy, met him on a flight, and you could tell Cherry was tired. He was already older at this point.
Yeah.
He was on a flight, he was tired, but he started talking to the guy, and he asked the guy, who's your favorite hockey player? And the guy said, Dale Hawerchuk. And he said, why? And he said, because Dale Hawerchuk won that face-off in the 1987 Canada Cup that led to the goal, and then took out a would-be back checker that led to the goal, the Mario Lemieux goal, that was the defining moment of that Canada Cup. And Cherry asked the guy who his favorite player was.
Yeah. That's terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just so while we're talking about it, just so you know, apparently Don Cherry, I guess, is intending to be back next year.
That's what I was told by my friend who spoke to Joe Warmington.
Yes.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
It just to me, it just sounds to me like it's time to call it a day.
Yeah, it might be.
Like I hope if we're ever sitting here and I'm going,
No, that
what? And I don't mean to make fun.
No.
But I'm making fun of me.
This is what we're talking about. It happens to everybody. There's a lot of people who understand it, and they leave the party on time. And there's a number of people who can't let it go. And they're at the party too long, if you know what I mean.
I had a great old man bird moment this week.
Did you?
I went down to the Point Claire Plaza to pick up my dry cleaning, and when I left, there are 2 plate glass doors. One of them was propped open, the other one was closed. I start pushing on the one that's closed, and the open one is right there in front of me. And I'm pushing on the one that's closed, and it's locked. And so I press the electric automatic opener, and nothing happens. I'm like, Jesus Christ, how am I supposed to get out of here? And then I look, and the open door is right there in front of my face.
Yes, I should go through the open door. That would have been a head shaker for people who might have been around you.
Well, no, because everyone who goes to that mall is at least my age or older, because that mall is right beside a bunch of seniors' residences. So they were probably all relating to me.
Jess and I were noticing that. We were on the West Island last week. Jess goes to a place in the village called the Bloke and Bird. It's the day you and I had lunch at Cunningham's.
Yes.
And Jess got her haircut. And when we were driving around the neighborhood, we stayed on the West Island to do some other things that day. She said, the West Island has really become senior citizen land. And she noticed that, there seems to be a plethora of older people. And I think it's, the people that were there when I was a kid are still there in a lot of neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the demographic, and maybe you fit right in.
Yeah, well, I'm still...
Maybe that's why the door was open.
Prop that open for old man Bird. He might come pick up his dry cleaning today.
Let's talk about Sugar Sammy. I'm getting excited personally because I'm having dinner with Sammy this week.
Nice.
Jess and I are going... for a bite to eat with Sugar Sammy. Sugar Sammy is a good friend of both me and Ted, and a sponsor of the Standing By podcast. And he's just recently launched some extra English-only shows for the people who don't want to see the bilingual shows. And if you don't go to the bilingual shows, you don't know what you're missing. Having said that, you may have seen some of the clips in the last week or so on Facebook. A lot of people were posting about how good the show was.
This 4-day run that he just wrapped up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, 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 very funny. Even when he's not using French. And his billboards are the best, eh? In the other, what is it? The other language? Have you seen the billboards?
Well, I haven't seen any. Has he got a new series up? I mean, I saw the ones that he put up back in the fall.
Yeah, no, there's another one in the other official language or something like that. Anyway, English-only shows in there. There's shows coming up, are there not, Ted?
Well, he's got 4 shows coming up in Gatineau. Tickets are still available for those, according to his website, Friday, June 27th, and Saturday, June 28th, 2 shows per night. The next series of Montreal shows will be in September, Thursday the 11th through Sunday, September 14th. Single shows on Thursday and Sunday, 2 shows per night on the Friday and the Saturday. That's starting on Thursday, September the something. Here it is. Thursday, September 11th.
Okay.
And ending on Sunday, September 13th. Just before that, he's got a run of 4 shows in Ottawa, the weekend of the 5th and 6th, Friday and Saturday, 2 shows per night. Rather than listen to me ramble on about it, you can go to sugarsammy.com, see all the shows. Tickets are available for all of those aforementioned shows still. They're not until the fall, but you know how quickly the summer's going to go, and you know how quickly his shows sell out. So go now to sugarsammy.com. And after you buy your tickets online, watch some of his videos.
Yeah, the website is terrific for that.
He's also going to be doing his TV show in France.
Yes.
I believe over the summer.
Yeah,
France a beaucoup de talent. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, quelque chose. Yeah, it's the France version of America's Got Talent,
Exactly.
and he's one of the most popular judges. And now a really big étoile in
It's funny,
France.
that he can't walk down the street in Paris without being mobbed.
Well, you know what? It's true here in Montreal too. He
But I mean, that
yeah.
makes sense to me intuitively because this is where he's from. But then when I think about Sugar Sammy in France being a huge star,
he'll be annoyed that I'm telling this story. But we were at the restaurant that we're going to go to this Wednesday with Sam. We were there last weekend, and we said to the owner, when we come Wednesday night, can you sit us like in a corner a little bit so that, Sammy's not on display because he's one of the most easily recognizable Montrealers everywhere. Okay. Are we going to talk about Strangers in the Night or are we going to have our guest?
let's bring our guest in,
Okay.
and then we can talk about strangers after that. What do you say?
Yeah. Ted and I are going to sing Strangers in the Night after our guest comes in. We've got a guest this week. Little bit of a un petit pause here, and we'll be back. Hope you enjoyed the little musical interlude. We're back, and we have company. Ted, please introduce our guest.
Our guest is a man of many hats, one of which he's wearing now. His name is Dave Morrow. He's a veteran of the Canadian military, served in Afghanistan with the Canadian Grenadier Guards. He's a podcaster and an author, and he'll be at Indigo in Point Claire this Saturday to promote his book called Harden the Fuck Up.
Okay.
It's an offshoot of his podcast, the Hard to Kill podcast. And Dave, my first question is, how did you convince Indigo to allow you to do a book launch with a book that has the word fuck in the title? How hard a sell was that?
Oh, man, it wasn't easy, Ted. Let me tell you. That first email, if only I could read it to you guys, it was contentious. However, they came around because I just said, well, Mark Manson has that in his title, and it's a huge title in your bookstore. So I modeled it after that.
What's Mark Manson's book?
His book is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Okay.
So clearly you're okay with that. But the idea was there's no real representation of veteran authors, period. And so they recognize that this is something that they don't normally put in their stores, but because of my story and I'm a veteran, they said, why not? Let's give you a shot. So I'm thankful for them for.
Dave, do you like when people say thank you for your service?
No, I can't stand it.
Okay,
Man.
good.
Really?
I wanted to, because there's something, I find it
insincere,
yes,
inauthentic.
thank you. Yes,
Disingenuous.
that people feel compelled to say thank you for your service. Although I'm deeply appreciative to people that do what Dave does. I did, but I don't know. It just feels like.
Yeah, I can give you a recommendation.
Okay, please.
Ask me a question.
There you go.
Just,
Yeah.
Oh, you're in the Army. That's cool.
Show an
What-
interest.
What did you do?
Yeah. Show an
Yeah.
interest versus just offer a platitude.
Exactly. I mean, everybody. I see it as a job, right? It was a really important job that I did, but thanking me for my service seems weird. And there's a lot of people who do a lot of really difficult jobs, doctors, nurses.
Yeah,
I don't go and thank them for their service.
Yeah.
I'd rather just, hey, your job seems really cool. What do
It
you do?
always seemed to me like something that you would say to your pet, or like, oh, that's a nice. You know what I mean? That kind of.
I thank my doctor after the prostate exam.
So you went gentle on me today, Doc. Thank you.
Appreciate
Dave, let's
that.
start at the beginning. When did you enter the service, and why did you enter the service?
I entered the service in 2001, right before the towers came down. So the goal was I wanted to
So
get.
you knew.
I had inside intel. I was the only 19-year-old at John Abbott that knew exactly what was going down. I just wanted to be fit, shoot guns, and hopefully get a girlfriend out of it. So shooting guns and getting fit happened, but getting a girlfriend was not in the equation.
No,
Apparently girls don't like a guy full of bug bites and a shaved head, but that's neither here nor there. The subsequent, I guess, years was some of the best in my life. I really enjoyed my service. It was the first time I found something that I was actually quite good at, just out of the box. I wasn't a great athlete. I wasn't a great student. I wasn't really great at anything. And I don't want to say that I was great at the military, but it was just something that I was able to rise the ranks of relatively quickly because I understood the game. It was like Simon Says,
Right.
and follow the rules. And then you get a little bit more responsibility and then just be good at what you do and take care of your guys. And so that's kind of how it progressed from there. And I was a reservist for, nearly 16 years here in Montreal with the Canadian Grenadier Guards and deployed in 2010 to Afghanistan.
How do you become an officer in the reserves? Just you get commissioned versus
That's
because obviously you didn't go to RMC, I assume, the
I did
Royal
not.
Military College.
No, I went to McGill. And because I was a reservist, I got to do all my McGill schooling during the year. And well, we call it the Grenadier degree. It took me 7 years to get a bachelor's degree, but that's a whole other podcast. The summers were filled with training. So I'd go to either Valcartier or Petawawa and sweat and dig holes and get bitten by bugs. And you just do your career progression courses during the summer. And I initially started as a senior non-commissioned officer. So I started as a troop, rose up to the rank of sergeant, deployed as a sergeant, and then commissioned from there, what we call a commission from the ranks to the rank of lieutenant.
So you end up in Afghanistan in 2010. What's happening in Afghanistan at that point?
We had to finish the war. We had to win the war. That's why I was there, because we left. As soon as my tour was done, combat operations were done. We pulled out, so obviously we must have won. So my job, right, was to essentially walk around with a big backpack full of money and help bring some semblance of stability and reconstruction to a war-torn area. So, for example, I got to help build schools, which was great because I'm a teacher by trade. I taught at
You
Loyola.
taught my son
your son
history in
Loyola.
grade 8, grade 9?
Actually, I think it was grade 9 and grade 10 science, if I'm not correct, but definitely grade 9 science. And being a teacher by trade, I had the awesome opportunity to actually help build a few schools while I was in my area of operations. And that was one of the most fulfilling experiences I've ever had in my life. And obviously go on combat operations and do all the fun stuff that an Army sergeant gets to do in Afghanistan.
Is it fun when you're actually doing it, or how much of an eye opener is it to actually be in combat versus shooting guns at Valcartier on the range?
It's, I guess the best analogy I could use is it's kind of like going from the minor leagues to the pros. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, this is, I spent 10 years training to get to this moment, and I'm fired up. I couldn't wait to go. I wanted to go for 10 years, I wanted to deploy. I joined the military knowing I wanted to go to war. Like, my family has a proud history in the Canadian Forces. My grandfather fought in the Second World War. I wanted to carry on that tradition. So on the ground, it's scary, but it's also exciting. You have a ton of responsibility. It's the most freeing experience I could possibly imagine anyone can experience, because I guess the closest thing would be, being a free man on the range, like having a ranch and just having your own show. You carry your own weapon. If you make a mistake, it's serious. Everything you do has intention. It was just a great way to live. And a lot of the guys, including myself, if you ask them, would you go back? You'd say, absolutely.
You sound like Rip from Yellowstone.
Yeah. What's
Love that show.
what's a day like? How do you comport yourself when you're in Afghanistan, when you're in combat zone, as a guy who shits his pants when there's thunder? I'd like to know, like, you wake up and you're walking around with a bag of money. Are you on pins and needles the whole time waiting for somebody to take a shot at you? Like, is it that frightening to be there?
You'd think so, but
I would.
I'll be honest. Like, I'm not trying to sound like a hero, but I really didn't feel terror or fear. I felt adrenaline.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, rockets are coming in, mortars are coming in.
Oh, yeah.
Incoming. You're going to get fired up, and so you turn into kind of like an adrenaline junkie. And on top of that, I didn't have a busy tour in terms of contact and fighting the enemy. I never got to fire my rifle at anybody, but that being said, we played IED tag, just trying to not get vaporized.
Right.
So
That's
that
how-
feeling is always in the back of your mind.
That was the nature of most of the Canadian fatalities in Afghanistan, no? IEDs, which are hidden roadside bombs.
Correct.
Vehicles run over them and guys get killed.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Now, I had the privilege of being able to serve with the Americans. I was on my own. My job required me to go out in the middle of nowhere, integrate myself with a unit, and do whatever they needed to get done. So with my backpack full of money, I was a useful asset. And I got to see their whole way of fighting war. And it was a little bit different than ours, but they treated me like gold. And it was just such a great experience because we got to really build that cohesiveness on a daily basis, because you're going out and you have to build that brotherhood pretty quickly. You have to trust each other. They don't know me at all. I'm some big Canadian goofy dude, with a weird accent, talking about hockey all the time, and they're making Canadian jokes, and I'm hanging out with them, and trying to figure out the different, parts of the U.S. that they're from. But those guys are my brothers,
Army or Marines or
they're
both?
all. It was an Army unit, so
Okay.
the 171 Cav. Shout out to the guys from Watertown in New York State. It was the right conditions at the right time, and I was able to make the best of it, and it was one of the best professional experiences I've ever had.
How long were you there, Dave?
8 months.
8 months. And when you got home, how did you deal with that? Like when that adrenaline stops rushing and you're not hanging out with, guys in a platoon.
Yeah.
How is the adjustment?
Short answer is I didn't.
You didn't.
Yeah, I didn't really know that I had to.
Yeah.
One of the saving graces that allows me to be here right now was that I got forgotten about. And I'll explain why I think that was one of the saving graces, one of the best things that happened to me. So I was banged up from my tour. I hurt my back really bad. I hurt my knee really bad. It subsequently led to me being retired from the military medically. What I didn't know is the worst injury was the psychological one. But as soon as I got back, I was like, well, I'm Sergeant Dave Morrow. I kick ass and take names. So I'm going to just occupy all my time with things to do. Become an officer, go on course, do my master's, start teaching high school science, coach all the teams I possibly can, have a kid, get married, do all those things so that I wouldn't have to address the lingering issues that are just bubbling up inside. And thankfully, the reason why I say I got forgotten about is that I didn't fall into the traditional system that would have over-medicated me and likely led to a worse outcome, because I didn't have to struggle on my own and figure out my own protocol, which is what I outline in the book.
So this is what led to hardtokill.org and the Hard to Kill podcast, and subsequently this book.
100%.
And are most of your efforts aimed towards helping other veterans?
They are. We're humans, though, as we all know, right? So this information and what I talk about, I use the filter or the lens of speaking to veterans, because there's really nobody else doing it. Because we have unique health challenges that most people don't have, like toxic exposure, cancers, mild traumatic brain injuries, lots of post-traumatic stress and traumatic issues. That results in just a whole cascade of health issues that need to be addressed differently than the general population. But we see these issues in the general population as well. So the podcast really brings on as many experts as possible, because I needed to figure out what was wrong with me. And I needed to do it for free because I wasn't able to access all these amazing, talented people and experts. So I decided, well, maybe I'll just start a podcast and talk to them for free, and then build my own little protocols and figure things out. And I did. My back injury, it's a lot better now. My knee injury is a lot better. And psychologically, I'm doing significantly better by following the expert advice that I share on the podcast and in the book.
On the back cover of the book, it says, "Men, listen up. We're dying from mediocrity. We're sicker, fatter, and more miserable than any other time in human history, and we're petrified into following the status quo, even though the evidence is right in front of our faces that the status quo isn't working, but it doesn't have to be that way." And I was flipping through the book just quickly, and I see all kinds of, it's really an advice book, right? It's a coaching manual, isn't it, Dave?
100%.
And it's not aimed just at veterans.
No, I mean, I really want to stress that veterans will benefit from this, and it's written so that a veteran can pick it up
Right.
and take action, because most of us have ADHD, whether it's due to combat or just that's how we get selected. So anything that's too lengthy and too, 50,000 foot point of view will just get lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
And so the book is really there to give you just the insights, a bit of research as the justification, and then what to do next. And 90% of the things that are in there, I've literally done myself. So anecdotally, I can say they work. And then from there, it's what do you do to ensure that this becomes part of who you are, and how do you become a harder dude?
Gotcha. Oh, there's a quote on the back. Quotes from different people. Dave's book is a must-read for anyone who served and suffers from the effects of years of breaching and jumping. That's Dallas Alexander, JTF2 sniper and country music singer, which I thought was kind of fun. That would be an example of somebody who's obviously moved forward.
He's a freaking legend.
Is that right?
JTF2 is kind of the Canadian version of Special Forces, like the closest thing you'd get to a Navy SEAL in the Canadian Armed Forces.
Yeah, I would argue even maybe like Delta. Like these guys are magicians.
Don't
There's
I-
so few of them.
Doesn't a Canadian hold the record for a kill?
him.
That's him.
It's him.
That's the
That's-
guy.
he's a friend of yours, is
Yes,
he
I
not?
was just at his
Holy
concert
shit.
the other week with my daughter.
What?
I love his stuff. So shout out to Dallas. Go check him out. He just released a
Wow.
new song. But
Did he?
His stuff is incredible, and he's in Nashville right now recording. He's doing a really
like
good job.
this, he can pick a guy off from 2 miles away or something, isn't it?
Yeah, he is
Yeah, like,
the
no,
longest
not
confirmed.
joking.
The longest. His team has the longest
Yeah.
confirmed kill.
Yeah.
In history.
Did he write a song about that? or-
Yes, he did.
Really?
Yeah. It's my daughter's favorite. It's Adios Amigo. Yeah. Yeah, it's really good.
And you know the thing about, because I know a sniper that works for the RCMP, and I'm fascinated by its wind and bullet and velocity, and like there's
And is it
the
always a
science.
team? There's a spotter as well, no? Or sometimes there is and sometimes there isn't?
I believe so. I mean, I wasn't a sniper.
Right.
It would have been cool to be a sniper,
But I know in the movies sometimes
Pretty
there's
sure
a
it's
sniper
always-
and then there's another guy
Yeah.
with him who's doing wind direction,
Pretty
and
sure it's teams,
distance,
yeah.
and
If you've ever, like when I was a kid and we had a pellet gun and we tried to hit a beer can and couldn't hit you in the arse with a shovel.
Yeah.
And there's this, well-trained, talented marksman that, do you know what the distance was, Dave?
I think it was over 2 miles or 2 kilometers.
Yeah.
I think it was over 2 kilometers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had him on the show actually twice. He was just recently on a few weeks ago. And then last year he talked about his shot, but his really famous, episode that he did was with Sean Ryan, the Sean Ryan show. He talked about it at length.
Wow.
And yeah, he really,
It's astonishing.
he's got such a good way about him to connect with his audience. He's not pretentious. He's very down to earth, and his music is
so
top
between
notch.
being a special forces sniper and a singer, he probably struggles with women a lot.
Oh, geez. Well, hey, I don't want to say, I don't, Dallas is an extremely handsome man. Let's just
and
put
he's
it that
handsome
way.
to boot.
He's an extremely handsome man.
What is breaching and jumping, Dave?
Imagine kicking down a door, but they do it with explosives.
Right.
So, and jumping out of airplanes. It's as simple as I
Gotcha.
can put it. I
Okay.
mean, I did one exercise, meaning I did training with the JTF years and years ago as the enemy force. And I was a young corporal, and they said, hey, look, dude, you stay in this room. Don't leave this room unless you want to get hurt. And as they started moving into the room, like it was just boom, boom. Like it was so aggressive and so violent and so quick. I just got a taste of what they do, but that's just, day after day after day, that's just a reflection of a lot of these guys, because of the blast waves, they don't realize how much damage that does to their brain. And, they've studied Canadian Armed Forces members that have passed away, that have donated their brains to get studied, and 70% of them have CTE.
Oh, wow.
So, and in the States, they're noticing that as well. Like the rates are really high. And it's just something we're not really tackling as an organization, both in the military and once you're out of the military at the Veterans Affairs level, that needs to be addressed, because a lot of the symptoms for post-traumatic stress are very similar to having post-concussion syndrome.
Did the American military, does their reputation arrive before they do? Like, are people overseas do people overseas go, uh-oh, the Marines are here?
Oh, yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you want things to get blown up and die, send the Americans.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to happen. The one thing that I noticed, and I'm glad I went to war to experience this, is our idea of peacekeeping is a joke.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. If you're showing up with a bunch of aggressive killers, which is, us, we got guns, we've got all the weaponry in the world, don't send us there to just make, if we want us to make peace, we can make peace. But the military shouldn't be used as an NGO, which is kind of what my job was. And I realized this doesn't make any sense.
Who's the host of the podcast that John Kiriakou was on that we listened to?
I wish I could tell you that without looking.
It might ring a bell with you, Dave.
Yeah.
John Kiriakou. He had John Kiriakou on. He had another guy on from Delta Force. And that guy said, when the black helicopters come, everybody dies.
Yeah, yeah. And I know this is not indicative of what you're talking about, but there's a documentary right now on Netflix about how they hunted down bin Laden. And the precision and the excellence, it gives me goosebumps thinking about the bravery, the excellence, the execution, the way that they went about that, and how they found however many guys they found to do that.
It's fascinating.
It's fascinating, and it's really impressive. And it reminds you of, we all live a peaceful, quiet life, and we forget that we live that peaceful, quiet life because of the tip of the spear. You're looking it up, aren't you, Ted? You're Dave.
He's
Ted.
Dave.
Yeah.
I'm Ted. Yes, I'm trying to look it up. In the meantime, Dave's website is hardtokill.org. The podcast is the Hard to Kill podcast. The book is called Harden the Fuck Up, and Dave will be doing a book signing at Indigo in Point Claire this Saturday. Did you tell me 11 to 3, Dave? 11 a.m. to 3 p.m.?
11 a.m. to 3 p.m.
No nonsense fitness insights from the world's leading experts to make you harder to kill. Can people come and ask you questions about being in the military?
I hope they do.
I hope they do too.
I hope a lot of people that aren't necessarily from the military world, part of what I'm trying to do is bridge that gap. Because so few served, and especially for my generation, the GWAT, the Global War on Terror generation, there's roughly 40 to 60,000 of us, not a lot. But we make up the overwhelming body of the fighters during that 20-year war. There's no memorials, there's no movies, there's nothing about us to even know what we did. And so part of what I'm trying to do is get the word out that, hey, we're here, we're in the community, and we're young. We want to serve still, and we want to get back involved in the communities once we get healthy.
And I don't want to be a pessimist, but guys like you and the people that you served with are going to be needed even more in the coming years.
I totally agree.
I think.
I totally agree.
One more time, Harden the Fuck Up. That's the name of the book by Dave Morrow at Indigo.
Indigo Point Claire.
It's the Indigo Point Claire. That's the Toys R Us mall, although Toys R Us is no longer there. Their sign's still up. So it's right next to where Toys R Us used to be.
So we're recording this on the...
on the 24th. Dave will be there on Saturday the 28th.
28th. Okay. Thanks for coming in, Dave.
Hey, thanks, guys. Really appreciate
nice
it.
to have you on the podcast. We'll take another break, and Ted and I will be right back. Our thanks to Dave Morrow for coming in, and we'll just say it one more time. Saturday, June 27th. It depends on
28th.
Depends on when you're listening to the podcast. Excuse me, June 28th, Saturday, from 11 till 3 at Indigo Point Claire.
Right.
Have I got that right?
Yep.
Dave's done really well with his merchandising, eh?
He has, hasn't he?
He brought some stickers, and he was wearing a really cool hat. It's the Dave Morrow Hard to Kill podcast. Is that right?
Hard to Kill podcast.
Wow.
His website is hardtokill.org. He's a good Joe.
Yeah.
He's a guy who came home from Afghanistan with PTSD, and part of the process of helping himself is helping other veterans.
Pretty cool. Nice, really nice to meet
He's given it away.
Yeah, absolutely.
in order to keep it, as they say.
Let's say thanks to the folks that came out to Strangers in the Night. We had some late night fun there after we did the Toots dancing with the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
We watched.
What was the Toots line again? And was that you or Jess who said that?
I think it was Jess, and now I don't remember.
It was something about every Toots on the West Island is here. And she had a perfect description of the Beach Boys. There's only one original member left.
Yeah.
Mike Love. Bruce Johnston is also part of the band. He joined in 1965, so he might as well be
He's an original.
yeah. But the rest were younger guys, but
Yeah.
they sounded like the Beach Boys. Just described them as a great Beach Boys cover band.
Because they were. We were talking about staying at the party too long. I would humbly suggest Mike Love has stayed at the party too long.
Yeah.
Just my personal opinion.
Yeah, it seemed like he might have been out of gas a little bit.
And we'll have fun, till the daddy take the bird away.
Let's just say Mike's not hitting the high notes anymore.
No, there was one song where he was.
Yeah. He backed away from the microphone.
just
kinda.
as you just described it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Round, get around, I get around.
I'm terrible, but that's what it was.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
exactly what it was.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Everybody had a good time though.
They did,
And there
yeah.
was over $250,000 raised for charity, which was amazing. And we brought on the Damn Truth, who were amazing as always.
Boy, did they rock.
Oh, Leela and Tom, and it was a really great night, and we're really pleased that Ken Doran and Larry Day asked us to be part of it. And if you were in the crowd, when I mentioned the podcast, a few people went, yeah, hey. And I thought, well, that's kind of encouraging for us.
It is.
You know? So a good time was had by all, and as Ted said, I was not there for the food portion because it's just too packed for me. I just... Did you? Was it?
I did partake
right?
in the food, and it was very good. And I got there early. It was a command performance. My escort Suzanne said, "We're going early and we're eating," and I said, "Yes, ma'am. Do what the pretty girl tells you to do."
Yeah.
And it was really good. It was really good, actually.
It was, eh?
Yeah. And the lesson I learned was if you're going to do the food portion of Strangers in the Night, do go early.
Yeah.
Get there early because it fills up real quick.
And you know what was great about, because I grew up on the West Island, because I lived on the West Island for so many years, it's really great when you go to these things and you reconnect with Orla, for example. I haven't seen
Lovey.
Orla. I haven't seen Orla in I don't know how long. I saw two of my cousins there that I haven't seen in I don't know how many years. I had occasion to see Steve Traynor and Paul Massey, like these, the guys that used to
Jim
run.
Beauchamp was there.
Yeah, Paul and
From
Steve
Cunningham's.
used to run Que Sera and Bourbon Street West. So it was a really nice night that
It's a
way.
bit of an old home week, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's an old home week. And if you listen to the podcast and you're living somewhere other than Montreal or Quebec, that's a good thing to come home for. It's kind of like a reunion of sorts. And it raises money for charity, which is an extra bonus. Let's say thank you to our good friends, the Mersons. We were saying when we started the podcast today, we're taking a bit of a break for the summer. And the Mersons, again, supported us with this season of the podcast, and we can't thank them enough.
Yeah, they've been with us from the get-go.
Yeah.
And even before that, they were with us
yeah.
when we were working in radio
Yeah.
and asked us to be their spokespeople then. And we're fine pleased to continue to speak on their behalf. School's out. You might be considering a summer road trip or you might have one planned. I would strongly suggest, and this is based on personal experience, take your car in, unless you have a brand new car.
Yeah.
Take your car in and have the Mersons inspect it before you head out on the road. I did that,
That's what
and
you
they
did,
found
yeah.
some things. They had to replace a sway bar, which is part of the suspension, I believe, in the back end. And I told this story last week, but I'll tell it again because this really, to me, this epitomizes what the Mersons are all about. Charlie, their service manager, said, I'm going to replace the sway bar. It looks like I'm going to have to do some bushings as well. Bushings or something around something to do with the suspension and the tires. And so I prepared myself for that. And then he called me back and said, you know what? I did the sway bar and now the bushings are fine. Replacing the sway bar took care of that. You don't need new bushings.
Yeah, and as we said, there's a lot of places you would go that you would never hear that phrase.
No, they would go, give him he doesn't need the
Yeah.
bushings. Who cares? Give them to him
it to
anyway.
him,
yeah.
yeah.
We'll make a little bit extra money off him. So that's the way the Mersons operate. That's why they've been in business for 3 generations. And that's why customers keep going back. So fluids, brakes, tires, battery, there are a lot of things that could go wrong on a long road trip. So make sure that that your car is in good working order, take it down to the Mersons and have it inspected before you head out on the road this summer. They're on St. Jacques, just west of Cavendish. You can call them at 514-487-5545. You can find them online at mersonauto.com. I am the Frito Bandito.
It always leaks into the podcast, eh? Let's do the tweet sheet. 'Cause,
Sure.
Boy, we had fun with the tweet sheet.
God.
Hey, last week
What was the one that made us laugh so hard last week?
It was Peach Cobbler.
Yes.
Was quite funny.
Yeah.
I thought anyway. Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough act to follow this week,
yeah,
but I
that's
think,
okay.
I think I found 3 pretty good ones, starting with this one from @What'sJoe. Him, a man of wealth and taste. Please allow me to introduce myself. Me, puzzled by the nature of his game. Woo, woo. If you know, you know.
Yeah, classic rock humor.
Yeah, if you know the Rolling Stones, you get the joke. From @Mr. Michael Rose. And if you look out the window, you'll see my ex-wife's house. She's with Todd now. That's his Camaro. I probably shouldn't be flying this low. The embittered ex-husband who's also a pilot. And from @Pennymacker. I don't need a bidet. I have a water pick and pretty good aim.
That's so gross. What was the story? That's a good tweet sheet. That's pretty good.
Not bad, yeah. It's
yeah.
a very, what did Shakespeare say? Brevity is the soul
Yes,
of wit.
yeah.
Those were all brief and funny, right straight to the point.
What were you saying? I think you posted it on Twitter, didn't you? About the guys that blocked you. We had them on the.
Yeah, there were a couple of guys I've had on the tweet sheets who blocked me. One Tooth Texan.
Yeah.
And William Ader. I don't know why they've blocked me. I can only guess it's because I said something that was too pro-Israel or not anti-Trump enough for their liking. That seems to be the main grounds for blocking these days. Because I've never directly interacted with them.
Right.
The only interaction I've ever had with them was using their stuff on the tweet sheet.
Okay, bye then.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
That son of a bitch promoting my Twitter account. I'll show him. Blocked.
I wanted to mention before we wrapped up this edition of the podcast and this season of the podcast, I just wanted to mention my heart and heart surgery and, the fact that I was lucky enough to get diagnosed and get a new valve. There's a website called heartvalvevoice.ca. It's a Canadian organization. If you know anybody who's had cardiology problems or issues or is getting a new valve or has to get a new valve or has been diagnosed, whatever, I thought I would mention it because I just want to keep raising awareness, especially for guys. It doesn't matter what age you are. We've all heard the stories of somebody being stricken, at what is too young an age. Some people are stricken suddenly in their 30s. But if you're in your 40s or your 50s or into your 60s and you haven't had a stethoscope on your chest in a while, please go do that. It's a simple thing. It doesn't hurt. Sometimes the stethoscope is cold, but the doctor can hear things that you don't know are going on. And I was so very lucky to be diagnosed by some very, very talented people. I've said this before. I'm lucky enough to be a patient at Cardiogenics. It's private healthcare. I get it. I'm spoiled. And Dr. Uman first heard the murmur, which led me to Dr. Smilovich, who kept an eye on me, and it led me to very talented doctors at Vancouver General Hospital who saved my life. So please go have your heart listened to. Go to heartvalvevoice.ca and you can read up about it. And I was thinking about that because that's how the podcast became weekly. They saved my life. We got bored with BC and we moved back to Quebec. And then you and I said, why don't we do this once a week? So I thought I would mention it.
And I think it's worked out once a week. People seem to like it.
I think so.
I like it. I like not having to do 2 or 3 a day.
Yeah.
You probably like not having to fly in for a week.
Oh, God, yeah.
And spending the entire week in the studio.
Yeah. I looked forward to it because I was coming back. It was part of what I think began to light the fuse about moving back to Montreal because I would come back to Montreal. We would record 10 episodes. then I would go home with the bagels and the, carnatzel and the whatever. And Jess and I would be talking about Montreal. And I think that began to light the fuse about us coming back.
Yeah. Doing it weekly has allowed us to keep it current and local.
Yeah. And
the audience seems to like that. That seems to resonate.
I think so too. We've had a ball doing it. And again, we can't do it without our sponsors. Speaking of which, let's just remind people about our good friends at Accutech. It's an electric company. That's what they do. They do electrical work, and they do it on a small scale, and they do it on a big scale.
I sent Trish from Accutech a note this week saying we're recording the last episode of the season. Is there anything in particular that you want me to mention? And she said at this time of the year, mentioning any kind of work that needs or that's needed for backyard electrical. Anything from needing to add power to install pool pumps or heaters, bringing power to outdoor sheds, having any plugs installed outside. Also, she says, and she reiterated, now is the time a lot of people get ready for the installation of hot tubs. That's not the reiteration I was talking about. Hot tubs on a day like this? Are you kidding me? But there will be cooler summer nights.
Absolutely.
And hot tubs are fun in the fall as well. No, this is what she said. Something not everyone wants to hear about, but any work that might need to be done on heating for the winter should be done now over the summer before it gets cold.
Yeah.
If any rooms feel cold and you want to add heaters, or if you're choosing to go from oil to electric heat, this is the time to plan. And you can plan by contacting Accutech. They're online at Accutech, ACUTECH.ca.
Another family business that we love. Started back in 1995, still going on the West Island. I just wanted to mention the website and a couple of letters. We got letters. That doesn't even make any sense anymore. Nobody sends a letter anymore. I do sometimes.
I'm sending a letter to my son, Sam, after unsuccessfully trying to call him in several different languages on my car phone.
I've been watching that series. Have you given up?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Here's a note from Todd Luker, who said, "Hi, guys. Just thought I would say that your so-called imperfections like touching your face, etc., makes for me what I always loved about you guys. You've always been authentic and true to your listeners. Guys, you're perfect the way you are. Don't go the way of AI. Just stay the way God or life has made you." Todd, thank you very much. Appreciate that. It's very nice. And longtime listener and weekly commentator, Benoit Pigeon. I'm going to say Pigeon because I think it's French. He sent me a note talking about the podcast and said, asked me if I'd heard of the Canadian Popular Music Exhibit of music in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. It's just started up at the Canadian Museum of History in Gatineau. Ben, I had not heard of that. Thank you for sending that along. I appreciate that. And just got a note that just poured in as the podcast is being recorded. And it came from Jason Goldfarb about Winnipeg and my comments about Winnipeg last week. Jason, I'm going to read that as soon as we're done here.
I did read that. In a nutshell, he completely agrees with what you said about Winnipeg being in a state of decline.
Yeah, pretty sad. Really sad. We talked about it last week because I was in Winnipeg a couple of weekends ago. And if you listen to the podcast, you know what we're talking about. Now, I thought we would mention, as we're getting ready to take the summer off, and here's what we're thinking. We just want to take the summer off. There's no big secret to it. I said to Ted, we'll model it after the way television and French radio still does business. Once it comes to Fête Saint-Jean, people take the summer off.
People check out and they come back after Labor Day.
Yeah, and if you're a Quebecer, you know the rhythm of the province changes after Fête Saint-Jean. People are just, kids go to camp and people have cottages and homes in Vermont and upstate New York and there's visits to PEI and, you're just doing different stuff. You have holidays. And if you want to use one of your trips to listen to the podcast, or if you're new to the podcast, let us suggest a couple of episodes that we wanted to highlight. I wrote too many of them down.
You did, eh?
Yeah.
I wrote 6.
Okay.
We probably wrote some of the same ones.
Yeah.
I would suggest the season premiere of this season's podcast,
Right.
the first one after you move back, September 11th, 2024. A lot of people like it when it's just you and me. A lot of people seem to like their Terry and Ted fix. That one was no guest for that one. It was all us all the time.
Yeah.
And
Going on and on.
yeah, but it was a bit of a milestone podcast because it marked the beginning of a weekly
Yeah.
podcast. As I said before, more current and topical than we were able to do when you were living in Vancouver. Also, my all-time favorite is still Cleve Ziegler.
Yeah.
My friend, Dr. Cleve Ziegler, who's the head of gynecology at the Jewish General Hospital. And if he wasn't doing that, he would be a highly successful stand-up comedian because he's very, very funny. That episode is from May 1st of 2024. Jessica Dion DeMonte, June 7th, 2023, when Jessica sat here and told us about how she was by your side during your lingering between this world and the next after you suffered complications post open heart surgery. That was a really good episode. So I'm going to, all the ones that I went through the other day and would recommend, I'm going to put them on our social media.
Okay.
Within the next day or so. Let me just mention one more. When we had Murray Sheriffs in, we laughed so much.
Yeah, Murray's
with
is
Murray.
great.
August 17th, 2022. Murray is a longtime broadcaster who's worked all across the country, and we just have so much in common with Murray. And we just relate to him so much, and there were so many great radio stories. And you don't have to be in radio or even interested in radio
just
to enjoy
entertaining.
the stories. Murray is such a great storyteller.
I wrote down so many. If you're a music fan, there's Mike Campbell from Tom Petty's band. We just had on recently. Alan Parsons, that was a favorite. Knuckles, Chris Nyland. There are 2 episodes with Chris Nyland. One is with Vittorio Rossi, where he's talking about his one-man show. And a couple of years ago, we had Chris in for the whole episode, and it was terrific. Another popular episode is Dick Irvin. That was a great conversation with Mr. Irvin. We enjoyed that very much. Our chat with Tony Marinaro. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
Tony Marinaro is quite a local story. One episode that I don't think has enough views based on who the guest was. I thought he was terrific, and he's always unbelievably great to talk to, is Michael Farber. We had a nice chat with Michael Farber. David Acker, Dave Stubbs, Pierre Hood, Leslie Chesterman, Dan Robertson, the voice of the Winnipeg Jets, Anthony Wilson-Smith, Tommy Schnurmacher, Pantelis. These are some of the guests. Mike Ward. These are some of the guests.
Pierre
that we've
Hood.
had. Michael Armstrong.
Who's in Israel right now.
Who's in Israel right now. Maureen Holloway, Joey Elias, Joe Avati. These are some of the people that have been on episodes that have gone by. So I highly recommend, a good place to start is YouTube, because if you go to YouTube and you punch in Terry and Ted podcast or Standing by, all the episodes come up in a row. So you can find them there. And also you can go to our website too.
And this year, more than any other, this season more than any other, if you like just Terry and Ted, we did a lot more of those this season than we did in years gone by. Episodes where there was just the 2 of us,
right,
from last September through this June.
Let's do some of my recommendations. There aren't many this week because it's summertime. We're having our patio redone, and the pool has got to open, so we're not spending as much time in front of the boob tube. But I thought I would mention this. Jess and I are very excited about The Gilded Age. The Gilded Age is on HBO, so it's on Crave. It's written by the same guy that does Downton Abbey, and the cast is terrific. The writing is getting really, really strong, and we really, really enjoy it a lot. Highly recommend it. It's called The Gilded Age. It's fancy costumes and a period piece, But once you get past that, if that bothers you, once you get past that, the characters are really, really interesting. The acting's astonishing in it. I wanted to mention Quarterbacks 2 on Netflix. Quarterbacks is a series that Netflix has done, like Drive to Survive and whatever. This year,
One of those behind the scenes of a professional sports type of affairs.
This year, they're featuring Burrows, Goff, and Cousins on Quarterbacks 2. That starts July 8th, and it's Jaws' 50th anniversary. I can't believe that movie was 50 years ago. I can't freaking believe it.
Remember the first time I saw it like it was yesterday.
Me too, because it was so impactful and so poo pants.
It's shocking.
Yeah, it was shocking. That's a perfect word for it.
And right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Right from the opening scene.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that with my father. We were in Boston. We went down to Boston to see a couple of Red Sox games. And while we were there, Jaws was playing in the theaters. And there's that one scene where they're underwater and they're at some fisherman's boat is adrift, and they're trying to figure out what happened, and they're underwater, and there's a hole in the bottom of the boat, and the fisherman's head rolls into the hole. My father went, Jesus Christ! I thought that he was going to have a heart attack. It scared the living daylights out of him.
Everybody's got a Jaws story because I posted something on my Facebook page, and everybody was talking about seeing it for the first time and going back to see it over and over again. Steven Spielberg thought it was going to be his first and last movie because things went so poorly. It was 100 days over schedule, and everybody thought it was going to be a disaster. Anyway, the reason I know that is because on July 10th on National Geographic Channel, there is a Jaws 50th special with Steven Spielberg, the cast, the crew, and a lot of the people that were extras or small parts in the film who lived in the town where it was filmed. A lot of great stories.
So it's about the making of.
The making of, the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the movie on National Geographic. And by the way, if you've never seen Jaws, do yourself a favor and see it. And
who among the actors is Robert Shaw's obviously long gone? Roy Scheider?
He's gone.
Richard Dreyfuss?
He's still with us.
Okay.
Yeah. He's been interviewed a lot in the last couple of weeks.
No doubt.
Yeah. And Lady Pants.
Lady Pants.
Yeah. I don't. That's when we don't know the actress. That's what we say in our house. Lady Pants. Also, we call the cat Lady Pants, so that's really unfortunate. Yeah. Anyway, the actress who played Roy Scheider's wife in the film, she's still with us, and she was on TCM last week. Last but not least, there is a Barbara Walters documentary. I know I go on and on about documentaries. This documentary is so beautifully put together and is so interesting and such a fascinating look at when news mattered and there was only 3 networks. And as one news guy says in the documentary, Jesus Christ, the lady's going to do the news. That gives you an idea of the era she came up in. Jess and I watched it last night. It's so, so good. I really wish young women would watch this podcast or watch this documentary because Barbara Walters paved the way in so many different ways. And it's really, really good. It's about 90 minutes. And if you've got Disney Plus, I can't recommend it enough.
I was watching a clip this week, and I didn't last very long because I had to very quickly get that off. The View.
Oh, Christ.
Talking about current events. And I thought to myself, that's like the Mickey Mouse Club talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis in the early 1960s.
But you know what? Pardon me. When The View started, it was credible. It wasn't like it's become.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's become a shit show.
Well, who was on it originally?
Well,
Barbara Walters was on it originally.
Yes, Barbara Walters anchored it.
Well, there you go. Well, there's credibility.
And in the first, there was only 4 of them. They were at a small table, and they weren't unhinged. Joy Behar's been there right from the get-go.
She's unhinged.
I never missed The View. When I was working, I taped it so that I would see it when I got home.
Whoopi Goldberg saying women in Iran have more rights than women in America.
Yeah.
Like, come on, stop it. Just stop it.
Haven't watched it in years.
Well, you're not missing anything. And I don't know why it comes up. I got to do something about my algorithm.
Yeah. And, excuse me, that was a Barbara Walters innovative invention, that show. And it was really, really good for the first few years
Now
it
it's
was on.
a cackling hen fest.
Yeah. And doesn't have the kind of
Gravitas.
thank you that it used to. We have to tip our cap to the people at Robert Richer Jewelers.
I hope they have air conditioning.
I sure hope
Because if they don't, all those Lindt chocolates have melted this week.
Yeah.
I know they have air
Of course they
conditioning.
have air conditioning. And,
Robert Richer Jewelers at 309 Dorval Avenue in Dorval for all of your jewelry needs. Do you have any particular pressing jewelry needs at the moment?
I
Or
don't
did you,
now.
did you cover it off on Jess's birthday?
I had some great help from the whole staff there just prior to Jess's birthday, and she was very, very pleased, as I knew she would be, because they have great taste and they have everything. They have simple stuff that you can buy for graduations, and they have, diamonds are a girl's best friend.
I've told this story before. I'll tell it again briefly. When I was in there the day before we had our meet and greet at Robert Richer Jewelers a couple of weeks ago, there was an elderly lady in there picking up her 3.2 carat diamond ring that she had purchased in honor of her late husband. And I don't know that I've ever seen anything so spectacular in all my life.
Yeah.
What an absolutely spectacular rock. Yeah. And Pierre picked that diamond for her in Antwerp on one of his trips to the diamond factories in Antwerp, and she put her trust in him. She didn't special order anything except to say, I want something. This is my budget.
Yeah.
And
get me something spectacular.
It's got to be something special and spectacular because I'm dedicating it to my ex-husband. And she had Pierre microscopically inscribe his name or their names on the diamond, like you can't see it without a Colonel Klink. No, not even more than a Colonel Klink.
Yeah, the magnifier.
Yeah. Not, a monocle's not going to do it.
Yeah.
But it was such a spectacular rock. And the nicest part of the whole story was, as beautiful as that diamond was, I could tell from speaking with this elderly woman that she would trade it to have her husband back in an instant.
In a heartbeat, yeah.
But those are the kind of memories that the Richets can make for you.
And it's a family-run, small business, not an intimidating place. Lovely way to stop in, even if you're just looking. Go see the folks at Robert Richer Jewelers.
309 Dorval Avenue in Dorval, just across from the Klinghoffer.
Right. And you can park at the Klinghoffer, too. Okay, that's going to wrap it up. Before we go, want to encourage you to keep sending us mail. You can go to our website, terryandtedpodcast.com. There's a way to email us through the website. There's a list of this season's episodes on that website. To look for other episodes, you're going to have to go to YouTube or your favorite podcast place, Apple, Spotify, etc. And want to thank, there's so many people that listen on a regular basis, and we hear from every week. Jeff Bartlett, Eli Corey, Benoit Pigeon, some of the people that have sent us email in the last 5-6 weeks. We really, really appreciate it. We love the fact that we're either accompanying you on a drive for holidays or a drive up to the cottage, or you're having a coffee with us in the morning, however you use the podcast. Ted and I can't tell you how much we appreciate it, because we really, really do. It's a small project that we thought, let's see what happens. And it just feels to be growing a bit, and we're really, really grateful. So
we're not setting the world on fire, but there are some smoldering embers.
Yeah, that's right. We always say this: we're not competing with the big boys, but a couple of Montrealers doing a Montreal-focused podcast for people that are from Montreal or used to live in Montreal or love Montreal. That's the whole idea. So thank you very, very much.
And we will remain active on social media over the summer. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we're on X or Twitter, where sometimes we get tens of views. we seem to do better on Facebook and Instagram than we do on X.
Yeah, and of course, being the idiots we are, we did not do a live Facebook one today. We should have.
Well, we didn't do it before the podcast. We can always do one after.
Okay. So thank you. Listen, have a great summer. Stay safe. We'll be back right after Labor Day. I think Ted and I have had a meeting. Didn't we have a meeting?
We had a meeting.
And it's going to be September 3rd?
I believe so.
3rd.
October 94th.
Okay,
if I'm
right
not
after
mistaken.
Labor Day,
Yeah.
we'll be back with a whole new season and some more fun and some more laughs. Watch for us on social media. Don't forget to lick, kiss. What do? You subscribe
lick, and kiss.
Yeah, all of those things. Matthew, am I doing this right? Okay.
Got the thumbs up from our producer.
Yeah, Matthew Borgelli is our producer. Couldn't do it without our executive producers, Pantelis and Mike Ward, and our other executive producer, Jessica Dion Damonte, who happens to be my wife and is very, very helpful. And she's going to organize the meeting we're going to have.
She's
Ted.
not only helpful, she's instrumental.
Instrumental is a much better word. Thanks again. We'll see you after the summer's done.
Bon été.
Standing by, the Terry and Ted podcast has been brought to you by the UPS Store Canada, delivering full-service solutions for your small business.